What's up? What's up? Once again, this is Malls. I am back with another episode of Break It On Down. This is the show where I do a song deconstruction and lyric breakdown of the songs from my new album called Famous Last Words, produced entirely by Drugs Beats. You can get that anywhere you get music. I'll have a couple of links down below. Today we are going to be doing the intro track 1 from Famous Last Words called MyStory. Let's get into it.
Some will say that I changed. I tell them that's the problem, cause you just stayed the same. This ain't a game, I lived every word of this time.
So MyStory is track 1 on the album, and it is actually the first song that I wrote for the album. And it's really rare that the first song that I write ends up being track 1, but it just happened to work out that way this time. The beat that I used, that wasn't the original beat I had for it. There was another beat that I had chosen for the intro. It was in that first batch of beats that Drugs, sent to me. He was playing the beats, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a good intro. And, that was going to be my intro. And then, a little while later, he sent another batch, and then the beat that is currently, the beat for the song was in. I was like, okay, this is gonna be the beat that I start the album off with. If you have been listening to me for, any period of time, or familiar with my catalog, or just perceptive, you'll know that I usually do a 1-verse song for my first song on any album or EP. I'll just do 1 long verse. So this one is no exception. I guess the exception is the fact that I have like a little monologue in the beginning of it. And I'm not usually one to do a whole lot of talking on my albums. I feel like I should put that in the song if I want to talk. But because I knew this was going to be, kind of an autobiographical work, I didn't plan on it being as autobiographical as it ended up being, but I really wanted to put a lot of myself into it. I felt like I should at least kind of set the stage of what you're about to hear. And if you have really been down with Malls for a minute, it's kind of sorta, the monologue is kind of sorta a callback to my album that I put out 2009 or 2010 called Service Entrance. I had an outro where I just talked over the beat. I believe Scientific did the beat for that. So I just talked. So it was kind of a callback, but not really intentional callback to that. Also, what made it a little different was, I started out with a vocal sample from a documentary. For those of that voice that you hear in the beginning, I'm not part of history, I'm part of the mystery. That's my story. That's Sun Ra. And I got that from a documentary on Sun Ra that I watched. I just put my phone up to the TV and recorded that part. And that was the first time where I was like, okay, I'm going to start using, all these bits that I'm recording from different TV shows and stuff that I'm watching, and I'm going to use it on this album. I've always just had them, but now I'm like, okay, I'm going to use them. So, the song starts out, it's a celebration, bitches. Lost 90 pounds, gotta pull up my britches. Found my way in this world, carving out my niches. I'm gassed off myself, the key is in the ignition. I stopped asking permission, I'm taking what I am owed. The secret to my success, I'm blessing you with the code. Left all the stressing alone, invested time in my own well-being. Healthy, and I'm just accepting my role. So those, I think 8 bars or so, that was just me really summarizing my journey to becoming who I am. For those of you that were unaware, I was a big dude. I'm still a big dude, but I was even a bigger dude. I was like 320 something a couple of years ago. And due to health reasons that I'll get to in a later episode when I talk about that song, at the time of me writing this song, I had lost 90 pounds. By the time I released the album, it's been a cool 100. So down 100 pounds. Anyway, so, I just came with the Dave Chappelle / Kanye West. It's a celebration, bitches part to kind of lead that in. And it's just talking about how I, carved my way into this rap scene. And I started out not really, because I had so many different influences from all over. It's like I didn't really know what I was as an artist. And I feel like I kind of carved my own space in my identity, and like, okay, this is Malls and this is what he represents. And it's my growth my growth physically with the losing 90 pounds, my growth, mentally, emotionally, and just, my growth as a human being. That's what those first 8 or so bars are about. And then the next few bars are: king with the nappy crown, acted out on stages, more business savvy now, pay me proper wages. Amazing how patience has been my saving grace when the very thing I hate most in this world is waiting. That's called growth. Some would say that I changed. I tell them that's the problem, because you just stayed the same. That's my in the whole album, that's my favorite sequence of rhymes. I feel like it represents me very well. If you've had conversations with me about music and stuff, maybe 10 years ago, I would always tell you, like, I don't know what I'm doing as far as like writing the rhymes, recording the rhymes, creating the art part. I know that, but as far as like, how do I market it? How do I promote it? What do I do? That stuff never came easy to me, and it probably doesn't come easy to most people, but I really felt like I struggled with it. So, I'm more business savvy now. And I know, like, okay, I'm not doing shows for free. I know to, okay, I got to register with my performer rights organization. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I got my business savvy up, and then the patience thing, like, that's me. Like, no, that's Jamal. That is me. Like, I'm a patient person, but I'm not a patient person. I'm more impatient with myself. But I had to learn patience, I think, as we all do as we get older and mature. You have to learn patience, and not everything is going to be on your time, or, in whatever timeline that you have set for yourself. Like, if it was up to me, I would have been at this point that I am now way back when I was in college. But life don't really work out that way most times. So patience is a hard thing for me, but I learned it, and I'm good with it, but I still hate waiting. I hate waiting unnecessarily, and that's growth, and that's what that is. And the line after that, some would say that I changed. I tell them that's the problem, because you just stayed the same. I have a lot of friends, or I guess had a lot of friends, especially from college, that, we kind of grew apart, as people tend to do. And then it's one friend in particular, although the line isn't about any one particular friend, but there's one person in particular that comes to mind now that I'm bringing this up. We were really tight in college, and then we lost contact, and then we somehow got in touch with each other again, and they were like, yo, man, like, you were totally different, from the person that I knew in college. And I'm like, in my head, I was like, wow, you're exactly the same as the person that I knew in college. And I mean, it's been, at the time, it had been like 15 years. Like, I don't know, man, that's not for me. I don't want to be that person at my age that I am now, that I was back when I was 19, 20, 21 or whatever. So that's just the growth. And then the next segment of bars, this ain't a game, I lived every word of this, times turbulent, your favorite rapper songs are just urban myth. The nerve of this nerd with this air that he's superlative, who don't go out a hermit, and I know that nothing's permanent. That's another one of my favorite little sections on the whole album, just because I like rhyming words that people wouldn't ordinarily rhyme. That's what kind of gets me going, as far as like, okay, I like this rhyme that I wrote. If I can rhyme words that people wouldn't normally use, and also use rhymes that people wouldn't ordinarily use, then that's when I feel like, okay, I got something here. This verse, even though it's kind of like a braggy type verse. I'm giving you me, you know. I am a nerd. Like, I like nerd shit. And I'm also a nerd about different things. And I do kind of have this belief, and it is a character flaw of mine, but I have this thing where I do think I'm kind of smarter than everyone else. It's not a good thing at all. I'm not advertising this like it's like, yeah, I think I'm smart. Like, I know it's not a great thing, but I do kind of have this like, I'm smarter than this motherfucker. You know, we're not perfect. I'm working on it. And I also don't go anywhere. Like, I don't go out. That's not my thing, you know. So I'm a hermit, and I know that nothing's permanent. I mean, I feel like that's self-explanatory. Nothing is permanent. Any success that I have, I know that it can be fleeting. You know, it can last a long time, or it can be over tomorrow for whatever reason. You know, it doesn't even have to be tragedy. I could just get up and decide tomorrow, like, you know what? I'm just gonna go and hike in Tibet for 10 years and just, you won't see me again. You know, you know, nothing is permanent. You know, very few things are permanent. So the last section of bars in the intro is, this the next edition of what you've been missing. They tried to box me out, but now they gotta pay attention. I'm the one that they probably never mentioned, but I'm still the one they copy on their own volition. This is the dawn of a new era, graze under the fitted, committed to the process, so I get it how I live it. Traveling across the map, I gotta move my pivot, and I don't care about the hate because it's better than indifference. That first part in that last section, that's the next edition of what they've been missing. I do feel like I hear a lot of people that tell me like, man, I miss, you know, the feeling that rap gave me at such and such a date, whatever feel like their prime music listening era was. And I have my own feelings about when people say that, but I'm not going to get into that all right here. But I feel like my music can help fill that void. You know, I always get comparisons to, you know, a lot of, you know, 90s golden era rappers, for better or for worse, you know. So I feel like I fill that void. So this is the next edition. I'm the next step in the evolution, you know, of what you've been missing. And then, you know, I had to give a little kind of a shot to my local scene. I guess not a shout, but a shot. You know, they tried to box me out, but now they got to pay attention. You know, this is some really kind of old stuff that I'm thinking of through my journey of, like, there was a point in time where I felt like, you know, I was not necessarily denied opportunities, but just wasn't considered when I felt like I should have been. And part of that growth is me realizing that ain't nobody gonna give you shit. You gotta earn it. You gotta work for it. You gotta go get it. And if you can't do it like that, you gotta make it for yourself. You know, so that's just kind of calling back to how I felt like, yo, you know, they tried to box me out, you know, but now they're paying attention because I've learned that you have to earn and you have to make opportunities for yourself. That being said, I do feel like I still fly under the radar, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. As they say, if you know, you know. I feel like I have noticed that a lot of people kind of employed some of the techniques that I use in certain areas, you know, especially like performing live. And I see it, and it's not a bad thing. Like, you know, we all learn and pick up things from somewhere, you know, that's just how you develop. You know, you can take one thing that this person does and flip it to where it's your own. And it's like, yeah, you got it from them, whether it was something that you consciously did or you just kind of absorbed it, you know, through osmosis or whatever. But, you know, I've seen myself in others. This is the dawn of a new era, and I'm saying that in regards to myself. This is I feel like this is my next evolution, the next step in my personal evolution. You know, I got the grays. They're not too much here, although there's a few, but they're mostly here. So that's still technically under the fitted hat, and committed to the process. So I get it how I live it. Like, I'm very much about doing the work. I wasn't always like that, but I'm very much about doing the not so glamorous part, doing my mailing lists, going out, on the road and doing these, small venues that I also miss. The part that may not be the most glamorous part or fun part as releasing the album and getting all the praise and stuff from your album that you just released. I've learned to embrace the not so fun, the not so glamorous work. And then the traveling across the map, I got to move my pivot. As most of you know, I'm a big basketball fan, so I had to throw a little basketball metaphor in there. Traveling and moving your pivot foot in basketball. And then the last line is a very important line to me. If especially my fellow artists out there, if we've ever had a talk about rap, as it pertains to being an indie artist, I always say that, like, I would rather people think I'm either really dope or really bad, but just indifference, that'll kill you worse than being terrible. Like, people will listen to stuff that they know is terrible because it's terrible, and they'll be entertained by how terrible it is. But if your stuff is just like, so, and if they're indifferent and they feel nothing, then that's when I could say you have failed. Like, if I could put out a song or an album and it gets a visceral reaction and people are like, oh, this is terrible, they got a reaction. They felt something, or, preferably if they feel, it's great, they're feeling something. But if you just put out something and it's mid, man, it's terrible. Like, that's a terrible feeling because it's going to be quickly forgotten, So I would much rather people hate on me or my music or my song or whatever than just feel nothing at all. So yeah, that was my story, which I hope it kind of came across that I just didn't misspell mystery when I put it in the track list as MyStory, and I tried to capitalize story, but I made it all one word, kind of a portmanteau type thing. I hope that kind of came across, but probably not. I don't know. So there it is, man. Another episode in the books. Famous Last Words, once again, is available everywhere. Currently, as of today, January 3rd, 2021, I've sold out of physical copies, but I am going to have more coming in. So the link in the description, moss.bandcamp.com, is a link where you can purchase your copy of Famous Last Words. I will let you guys know when I do have CDs back in. But if you're the streaming type, it's available on all your streaming platforms. Famous Last Words, produced entirely by Drugs Beats. You know what I'm saying? We can see you back next time, next week, next Tuesday for the next episode.
This called growth. Some would say that I changed. I tell them that's the problem, cause you just stayed the same. This ain't a game.